As artists living in a digital era, we are constantly flooded with information on how to improve our art skills, my videos included. But there's some advice that I think have been severely misunderstood, and in today's video, I would like to hopefully shed some light on them. Hey there, Neddy here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Oge, also known as Neddy, and I am currently a concept art student at Scene Studio Montreal. It's been a while since I actually filmed this type of sit-down chatty video, so apologies if I feel a little stiff and awkward. I have to take some time to get used to this. This video is also very different content from what I usually post. Before we begin, I just want to make this clear that this video is in no way trying to throw shade at anyone or anyone's advice. I just felt since I have a platform, I could maybe hopefully shed some light and take some time to talk about these misinterpreted or misunderstood art advice that I keep hearing all over the place. A lot of the advice you hear on the internet most likely comes from good intentions, but some of them can be taken to the extreme. Anyways, without further ado, let's just get into it. The first advice is draw every day. I'm sure most of you have heard this advice, and I'm also sure most of you know that this advice has already been probably debunked. The idea of drawing every day is literally just the tip of the iceberg. You can basically say drawing every day is the same as practicing. Practicing is an act of constantly repeating a task over and over until you're improving it. But the reality is, in order to get to the skill set that you want to, you have to have a perfect balance of practicing and studying. Obviously, everyone's goal with their art is different, but I'm sure most people who create want to hopefully create work that is good, or at least good enough for them. In order to reach that skill, there just has to be a perfect balance between these two. Obviously, what you study can change and how you study is different, but practicing alone can only get you so far. But the reality is, practicing builds shorthands. It makes you find ways to execute something in the best way for you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the right way to do it. And yeah, I know you might say there isn't a right way, or there is a right way, or there are so many right ways, but depending on the kind of skill set you want to achieve, there are some fundamental knowledge that you have to know in order to get to that skill. And if you keep drawing every day without actually seeking that knowledge, you won't be able to improve as much as you would have if you had a perfect balance. Think of it as going to the gym. If I were to go to the gym and I did not know how to use the equipment there, I would go and attempt to just start off anywhere doing what I think I should be doing. And sure, maybe along the lines I might be gaining some muscles, but I won't be using the machines to their maximum ability to help me get to the goal I want to reach faster, if that makes any sense. Also, drawing every day is just such an extreme thing. Like, not everyone can draw every day. Not everyone has the privilege to draw every day. And trust me, even though it seems like studying is a lot more stressful, it makes it so much easier to draw and create artwork when you know why things work in certain ways. I remember when I was beginning, I would always be confused in certain things, and I realized the moment after studying the fundamentals that literally as long as you know why it works, you'll be able to execute this properly. Like, that's just it. You don't understand color, learn color theory. You don't understand how to draw the human figure, learn anatomy. You don't know how to draw environment, learn composition. It's really that simple. The next one is a very touchy topic, and that is tracing. Now, I know some of you are probably already ready to like slam at your keyboard and be like,
tracing is wrong no matter what.
And there is some truth to that. I agree. But the reality is, it's not always wrong. Like I mentioned, you have to study in order to improve, and one of the things that I do to study is studying other artists that I look up to. And one of the best ways to learn how other artists are able to make beautiful work is by copy, or simply honestly tracing over their work. But the most important thing to note here is you're not allowed to claim the tracing, post the tracing without crediting. You know, that is when it becomes wrong. But if you want to understand how an artist makes certain shapes, certain marks, certain brushstrokes, there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting their artwork, reducing the opacity, creating a new layer on top, and tracing over it. If anything, it really helps you break down the decisions the artist made. And even if you feel like you should post it, I still think you shouldn't, but even if you feel, crediting the artist is perfect. Don't try to take any claims. Maybe you're trying to post it as something you learned or something you noticed from the artist's technique. That's fine. Just make sure to credit the artist. That's all. So another way to improve your art skills is learning through tutorials. And I also think the idea of learning with tutorials has been severely misinterpreted or maybe misunderstood. A lot of artists, beginners especially, believe that there is one tutorial out there that has all the answers to all their problems, and the moment they get their hand on it, they're gonna become a better artist instantly, and that is simply not the case. You see, there's a lot more to it than it seems, as everything in life. You see, tutorials can be very helpful in your improvements and your journey, but I think a lot of artists use tutorials wrongly, and let me explain. I like to see tutorials as two different types. We have fundamental tutorials and inspiration tutorials. A fundamental tutorial, as its name says, focuses on teaching the fundamentals. So those are tutorials that actually teach you the theory behind things work. A good example will be Proko's channel. On Proko's channel, he doesn't teach you how to draw in a specific way. He teaches you the basics and the fundamentals on how to learn human anatomy, how to draw the body, how to construct it, how to understand the theory and the principles behind drawing a human body. They aren't trying to get you to draw in a certain way. They're trying to teach you theories that can be applied in every aspect of art, regarding the style you're trying to achieve. When teaching, these tutorials are answering why, how, and when to do certain things. And I think as a beginner, you should always start from fundamental tutorials before jumping over to inspirational tutorials. Inspirational tutorials, on the other hand, are tutorials that focus specifically on how an artist executes an artwork. So you know when you see those videos like how I draw hair, that will be classified under a inspirational tutorial. As a beginner, you shouldn't start learning with those videos because what you're learning is that artist's shorthand in drawing hair. But the issue with that is when you want to try and expand your art style, or when you want to try and go in a different direction with your art, you're not going to be able to do it because the only way you know how to draw hair is how a specific artist knows how to draw hair. You don't understand how hair flows and how the parting works. You don't understand the theory behind how to draw hair. That is why it's always good to start with the fundamentals before moving on to inspirational tutorials. So next time, before you buy a tutorial, ask yourself what tutorial you want to buy. A good example would be, let's say you want to learn how to draw portraits or how to paint portraits. I recommend you start with a tutorial that explains the structure of the head and how the head works before jumping into a tutorial by a specific artist you admire that explains how they draw portraits, if you get what I mean. This is also how one is able to develop an art style, because when you know the fundamentals, you're able to break it down and execute it in various ways. Anyway, you can make it more stylized, more hyper-realistic, you can make it anime, you can have fun and do whatever you want as long as the basic fundamentals are there. This next advice is one that it's an advice that I hear a lot, and it literally is a conversation starter, and that is, don't go to art school. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I am currently an art student at Studio Montreal. But before now, I was actually fully self-taught, and I made content about my self-taught artist journey. It was a huge decision for me to make to finally go to art school, but it was a decision that I made, and I feel like it was a wise decision. And here's why. When you watch videos on why you shouldn't go to art school, a lot of them are videos telling you from their perspective. And the reality is, there are so many other reasons why you should go to art school. For example, simply connections. Art school opens you to a lot of people that you probably wouldn't have access to if you were sitting at home in your room and studying all alone. The environment is also just a pleasing environment, being able to grow alongside classmates that are always there to encourage and support you. You get constant feedback on flaws in your art that you would never have noticed if you kept practicing simply by yourself. But I'd like to say one major reason that I feel everyone should not just take this advice at face value. Sure, you don't need to have a degree to get a job in arts, but depending on the career path you want to take, you might need that degree down the line. I've mentioned this on my channel multiple times, but I'm Nigerian, born and raised. I grew up in Nigeria and I've only lived abroad starting in 2018. And as an international artist who would hopefully one day like to work in the video game industry or animation industry, I would need to have some sort of art degree in order to get a visa if I would like to have the chance to move to a country like, let's say, the United States, where the industry is most prominent. Some people don't just live in countries that, have these opportunities and would love to move to countries that have these opportunities. And in order to do that, we just have to have some sort of art degree. And that makes art school kind of a necessity for us. When I started looking into going to art school, a lot of videos shunned the idea, but I noticed that a lot of those videos were made by citizens of the United States. And like I said, I know there's nothing wrong, they're probably just telling you their opinions, but I realized that it kind of sheds a bad light on the idea of art school, when in reality some people just have to, you know, depending on what they want to do. Plus, I feel like art school for me has been so helpful and so beneficial that I'm glad I decided to take this leap. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's different for everyone. And the last advice that I think has been severely misunderstood is do not use the smudge tool. Okay, so this advice is more metaphorical rather than actually direct. Here's a little story. When I first started out my digital art journey, I saw a lot of advice saying not to use the smudge tool, and I abstained from it as much as I could. But one day I decided to experiment and I actually fell in love with it. I found out that the smudge tool was not as bad as a lot of people made it seem. The main point behind this last tip is not to take everything you hear on the internet at face value. Everyone's art journey is different, and even when you hear advice like my video or anyone's video, try to consider why this person is telling you this advice. Try to do your own research and try to see if this applies to you as an individual artist, your goals, what you're trying to achieve, and try to make the best of the advice rather than just taking it at face value and sticking to it. What works for one person might not work for another. And even though there are generalized concepts behind what works and what actually doesn't work, you're different. We're all different. And I think that's the main thing I want you to take away from this video. If you agree with me, that's fine. And if you don't, that's honestly fine. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. It really does help support my channel. And feel free to leave any more misunderstood art advice that you've heard in the comments and share the knowledge, honestly. Also, feel free to check out more videos on my channel. Recently, due to school, I haven't been posting as consistently, but I'm trying to get back on schedule, so thank you so much once again for all the support. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.